EVE Online is an interesting game. For a little bit of context, I've been playing EVE Online since 2010. Back then, I was just a 13-year-old teen, and I didn't really find out about the game from a store or a TV ad. Funny enough, I actually found out about the game in one of those early internet sidebar advertisements. The ones that you would see an animation of a spaceship flying by battle with a play for free for 14 days. And funny enough, the website that I saw this advert on was either Armor Games or Miniclip, one of those flash game websites. Now, I wasn't a stranger to PC gaming. I had played other games at the time, stuff like Call of Duty, Medal of Honor, Unreal Tournament 2004, but a majority of those games came from PC Gamer demo discs, from the old PC Gamer magazines. However, there was one game that I got access to, fully, and it really did mold my tastes to how they are now. That game was Homeworld 2. Homeworld 2 was my first proper real game. Everything else before that was either flash games or demo games, but I played the game a little differently compared to everyone else. It was an RTS. A lot of people like to focus on strategy, the real-time tactics, and to win skirmishes, but I enjoyed Homeworld because to me it felt like it was almost like I was playing a movie. The campaign in Homeworld was fantastic. The animated cutscenes that were later that I learned hand-drawn, and the storytelling was absolutely amazing for a young mind such as myself. What I did really enjoy and what really clicked with Homeworld was the skirmish modes. And unlike everyone else, I would, instead of trying to beat the AI opponent or an online multiplayer opponent, I would create big fleet battle groups and I would have them skirmish together with the enemy. And I wouldn't sit there and micromanage. I would just drag a box and just tell them to attack. And I would sit there zooming in to the fighters, watching as they were shot down by other fighters and corvettes. And I would also look at my ships that would take heavy damage, zoom into them. I would hear the low hull warnings and watch as they explode. To me, Homeworld was a game that gave me that spectacle of battle between two massive fleets and watching them duke it out. I loved that more than anything else. Because of this, this had molded the point of view that I had towards space games. Now, I knew there were games like Freelancer and Wing Commander, and I do occasionally play Elite Dangerous, but to me, they really didn't click. I didn't really want to be in a fighter or a small craft. I wanted to be in a frigate or a destroyer or these massive capital ships, and be in control of them with multiple turrets and different hull sections to be damaged. I never really saw the appeal of being the plucky little ace fighter pilot, but being the captain of a massive starship, to me, that was what I was craving. Now, back then, there wasn't really a tutorial or a new player experience. You just kind of got thrown out of the deep end. So, you made your character, you named it, chose your race, and you chose a bloodline, which was actually important back then, but I didn't really know about that. And that was it. You were in the game. There was no cutscene or video to tell you everything about where you are. You just poof into a bit of space in this ship. This is how it looked like before. This is how it looks like now. I do miss the Caldari asymmetry. There's a lot of ships that now have new models, but in the past, they were asymmetrical. I kind of love that look, but that might just be my nostalgia speaking. My first experiences in EVE were actually quite funny, and I still remember them to this day because I was so excited to play the game and to look around in my ship that I completely missed the tutorial. Now, back then, the tutorial that you had was one that just popped up and told you the controls. It was a lot of reading, you had to keep clicking next. Because I was only 13 at the time, I thought to myself, I'm great at games, I'm not going to need this. And that was my first mistake. I really was not prepared for the complexity of EVE. And I thought, oh, this is going to be fine. I'll use WASD like every other game, and that's how I'll move my ship. But no, that's not how it worked. I thought there was a button that would have to make my character move to the bridge to take control of the ship. I really was so out of my depth that I started panicking because there was some red crosses on my screen, and as you know, red is not a good color. It means bad enemy type of thing, and I knew that there would be trouble. I found the local chat at the bottom left and tried typing like, help, how do I move my ship? WASD doesn't work, but this was a starter player system. The only other people that were going to be in that system were other people that were new. So they probably didn't understand what was going on. Eventually, looking at the left tabs, I found a little question mark, and that was the help button. With that, I brought the tutorial back up. Problem is that as I got the tutorial back up, I was getting shot at by the pirates' ships. The little red crosses they had approached, locked up my ship, and my shields were rapidly decreasing. So this wasn't good. It's funny because I think about this and I look back to it and realize how silly it all was. Like the panic that I was in, I couldn't figure out the controls of the game, and I had just turned the tutorial off. But finally, I was able to learn how to lock the pirates, orbit them. I started firing at it with the civilian railgun. I think that's what it was, and I had finally felt it. It was then and there that while I was watching the ship firing onto this pirate, watching the turret turn and track and shoot, and eventually blowing up that other ship, that it got me. Oh, it was fantastic. It was a feeling of relief that I had finally found it. I had found the game that I had been craving and wanting so much, to be in control of not a little fighter, but to be in control of a ship, a real starship with turrets and commands, and it was just perfect. And fast forward to today, it's been 16 years since then. I had a good 6 years from 2010 playing the game almost religiously. Anytime I would come back from school, I would start up the game again. Funny enough, back then I couldn't actually get membership, so it was just a case of getting a new account, 14 days of trial time, and seeing how far and how quickly I could progress up. The best I got to during the 14-day trial was getting an Osprey. Back then, the Osprey was actually a mining cruiser. I still remember my first corp, and I actually do still keep in contact with some of my first ever EVE friends. I remember Kwilinski, I remember Arius Gates, Lee Jansen, and I will never ever forget Waldo Manhunt. He was essentially my EVE Online grandfather. He was an old Vietnam vet who went through 3 divorces, and he just had a couldn't give a fuck attitude. He would entertain me and tell me about his life stories, and I won't lie, I really do miss him, and I do hope he's doing well. EVE Online has been a massive part of my life. I've been itching to get back into the game. I kind of fell off in 2016, but I'd like to get back to that same feeling that I felt when I first played the game. However, this time I don't want to follow the grain. I don't want to do what I've already done. And I've had this idea in the back of my head for quite a long time. I'd like to play EVE similar to how some people play old school RuneScape. I'd like to play EVE alone. Using the Iron Man mode from RuneScape as inspiration, this EVE Alone run, as I like to call it, is going to have a set of rules that I will need to follow. The only things you can buy on the market are items sold by NPCs. This is BPOs, trade goods, and other items. You can find out whether or not a listing is an NPC listing because it has a long trade duration. This also applies to skill books. The only things you can sell on the market are items that have an NPC buy order. For example, blue loot, D&D site personal effects, and other trade goods. Same thing applies with the selling orders. Buy orders that have an extremely long duration are orders made by NPCs. No interaction with other players of any kind except for PvP. No contracts, no trading, no docking or tethering onto other player-owned citadels. There is a debate to be made for Pocos, but we'll get onto that later. And if you have to repair your ship, it's either with own ship modules or at an NPC station. Cannot sit tethered off of a citadel and have everything repaired there. One account, one character, one human. There's no point in making multiple alts. It destroys the spirit of the run of truly playing the game solo. Any kill rights earned need to be used either by yourself or given away publicly for 0 ISK. Also, if you have a kill right on you, you cannot use a friend to claim it and get it removed. It has to be left alone. No project discovery. It's a massive ISK faucet and it just makes things too easy. For new accounts and players, the only tutorial/career missions that you're allowed to complete are Business Arc 1 out of 10 and Business Arc 2 out of 10. This is one of the few ways to get a venture without having to go to Outer Ring in Nullsec and buying a BPO and then having to bring that all back. These are one of the few exceptions that are essential because mining in a rookie ship is awful and the venture actually makes this a little bit more bearable. As for the other career missions, they're not allowed. They provide too many ships that makes the early game trivial. You're only allowed to loot wrecks that you have made. Can't steal loot from other players, but you can salvage other players' wrecks. Looting drones left behind by other players is not allowed. There may be an exception for drones that were abandoned in wormhole space, but we'll need to get into a little bit more depth in that. So that's the rule set for now. If there's things that need to be changed in the future, we will have a look at them and probably have to make more exceptions. But without further ado, it's time to start. So, here we are. New account. Time to choose a race. I could just do what I did back in 2018 and choose Caldari. And I feel like Caldari would be a good option because, you know, missiles and whatnot. I could choose Amar and be stuck in mid-slot hell. Or I could do Galente, because if I did Galente would be a lot easier. Drones are just great. Drones and hybrids, yeah, I can do a lot of damage. Just don't like the look of them. If I want to do hard mode, I could do Minventar because you just don't have really ship options on. You kind of need a lot of skills to do. I hate projectile weapons. I struggle with projectile weapons a lot. I'm actually going to do Caldari. Even though I'm, you know, it's... Should I? It doesn't really matter. This is the wonderful thing about Eve. It doesn't matter what race you choose. At the end of the day, you can just train into anything. That's that. Unlike other MMOs, where if you choose, like for example, World of Warcraft, if you have to choose between Horde or Alliance, you know, you're kind of stuck. And then when you choose your class as well, you're stuck, limited to certain abilities and certain armors. And no, not in Eve. And you can fly and do whatever you want. This is something I'd like to touch on a little bit more. In other MMOs, when you create a character, you need to choose a race and your class. So for example, in World of Warcraft, you would choose a race that is either in the Horde or Alliance, and then you would choose your class being from Fighter, Paladin to Mage. The type of class that you choose then locks and restricts what type of weapons and armors that you can use. In EVE Online, this is not the case. You can choose whatever race you want, you can choose whatever bloodline you want, and there won't really be a difference except for the visual look of your character. Let's say, for example, you chose Caldari, but you decided, these Caldari ships aren't doing anything for me, I would like to fly the Galente ones. Well, you can train into those ships, and you can actually fly them. There are no real restrictions on how you can fly or fit your ship. As long as you have the skills, you can do what you want. And that freedom is just a really cool and iconic part of EVE Online, that you're not stuck following one path, that you can branch out and at any point decide to take a massive career change. And it's an interesting thing to have in an MMO. up on it. I remember when walking in stations was like the big thing. Everyone was looking forward to that. And a lot of hype behind it. But now walking in stations is gone. The point. And it really is. I genuinely was looking forward to walking in stations. Maybe having some, interesting, bars, see everyone else all at once. But here we are. It's a shame. It's a shame. We might be here for a while. Do what I normally do. Let's go for this. Get him up, Bafer. Well, randomize. Oh my god, those are even worse.
New Eden, a universe brimming with possibility.
Hey, these are not so bad. Like, these are actually we've got weapon upgrades at 2 already. Damn, CCP. Damn. Just to quickly explain what I'm doing here, EVE Online has a skill system. So, for you to use a certain module, like say for example, a hybrid weapon, you'd need to have the small hybrid weapon skill. This goes from level 0 to level 5, with each level giving you a 5% damage boost to hybrid weapons. Certain weapons, for example the Tech 2 variants, require you to have level 5 and a specialization. So for example, using the hybrid weapon, if you were to have it at level 5, you would then need either Railgun or Blaster specialization to use the Tech 2 variant. And what I'm doing here right now is setting up my skill queue so I can have specific skills trained up. This would help me get better equipment, but also improve my weapons and modules because they would have a small 5% or 2% bonus towards that module and make my ship more effective. This also applies to ships. Let's say for example you have this ship here, a Kestrel. It needs Caldari Frigate. Now let's say you have Caldari Frigate at level 3. What you would then get is a 15% bonus to light missile and rocket damage and a 30% bonus to the light missile and rocket velocity. So your rockets and missiles will go further and they'll do more damage than if they were put on a ship that didn't have those bonuses. Now, unlike other MMOs, the skill system in EVE is actually time-based, so you would have to drag a skill onto your skill queue, and over time you will accumulate skill points to train that skill up from one level to another. The higher you go up in the levels, the longer the skill training takes, and there are certain skills that have different multipliers. Basic skills will have a 1 times multiplier, while more advanced skills can even go up to 10 times multipliers.
Please direct your attention to the icon. You can add them in now. Access the skill window from the skills are essential for all.
It destroyed my entire skill queue!
Measurement of one's growth. Training a new skill takes time as the neural pathways of your now. All you have to do is confirm the training.
Harvesting resources is one of the best ways to earn money in New Eden.
No, it's not. No, it's fucking not. I will explain myself here as well. Despite the tutorial saying that mining is one of the best ways of making ISK in EVE, it's a little complicated than that. If you were playing by yourself and you were just having your own one mining ship, the amount of ISK that you'd be making per hour really doesn't justify the time and effort that it takes, versus just taking something like an exploration ship and finding a nullsec relic site which could yield you between 20 to 200 million depending on your luck, which is way more than what you would get mining ore in high sec, low sec, or hell, even in null sec. The other thing about mining is that it's one of those career paths that you just need to have more. So instead of just having one ship, having 5 characters and 5 accounts, all in their own mining ships supported by a mining command ship, will eventually yield you higher ISK per hour than any of the other activities, but that would require you to have 5 accounts and a lot of ISK and skills invested. So it is one of the best, but only when you have multiple accounts. Everyone does mining. Everyone does mining.
You gotta know the difference between raw ore and refined minerals. What would you...
Select the ore to see what you can do with it. In this instance, we want to sell it to...
Let's have a look.
Select the ore to see what you can do with it.
Okay, so this is fine. because the buyers here are Arc Laboratories, and you can tell that this is an NPC order because it is bang. Buyers 364 days. You were told these are all what's it called? Player ones, because the maximum a player could put something up for is 90 days. So. Now, this one I don't really need to explain if you plan to play EVE normally, but because I'm playing with this funky rule set, I need to be very careful with what I buy and sell off the market. Like I said at the beginning of the video, the way that you can tell that something is an NPC order is that its duration will be more than 90 days. Players can only put something up on the market for 90 days, however, NPC orders that have been seeded onto the game can go up to 360. That's how you can know whether or not you're buying from an NPC. This is why I'm pointing out that this is actually a safe place for me to sell this ore because it's got an NPC buy order and I will not be interacting with another player. Thus, I am not breaking the rule set that I've set out for myself.
Nearly done.
That's a nice haul you've got there. I've transferred the ISK to your wallet.
I need to make sure that I grab the correct one.
My sentimentality may need adjusting. Now it's time for you to venture out into the stars.
That's it. We're done. Tutorial completed. Now the real game actually begins. So we've completed the 2 career agent missions that we're allowed. Everything else is... And we shall now board the ship. Yep, I remember that this was something that they added in. Anytime you board a new ship, you get a nice cutscene. This is interesting! So this thing we are now going to package and trash. Old Ibis, we do not need it. And now we have this monstrosity. We can one upgrade. Already doubled up what we can mine, so that's great. That in our mining hole. 2 drone base slots. That's pretty interesting. Now, we are not allowed to do any of the other career missions. This is where the game begins. First thing I'd like to do is definitely want to get different for mining. Well, that's the end of this episode. We've completed the new player experience, completed the tutorial, got the venture from completing the first and second business missions, and from here on out, it will be a good adventure to see how far we can go solo in EVE Online. Until next time.